What are the downsides of weed that people don't talk about? As a pretty consistent weed smoker, I don't like when people say that weed isn't addicting. They're right in saying that it's not addictive chemically like nicotine or something. You can still get addicted to not being sober. Demotivation in heavy consumers. It is fine in moderation, but multiple times per day seems to suck the ambition from most people I've seen, including myself long ago. One thing that I never see brought up is the effect of marijuana on dreaming. Marijuana use can prevent the user from dreaming during regular sleep. When the user stops using marijuana for a while, they can experience night after night of extremely vivid dreams. I can only speak from my own experience, but I have heard this echoed by a co-worker's dad who started smoking again because he couldn't handle having acid trip dreams every night. I suspect that marijuana has some potent effect on REM sleep that will remain underdocumented until it is descheduled and more thorough research can be done. I would say that as a long-term smoker that wants out, it has made me incredibly boring. If I have evening plans on the weekend but smoke anything in a day, then I'm far more prone to canceling those nighttime plans. If I do attend those plans after smoking in a day, then I feel I'm not entirely there. Awkward silences. Jokes don't land. Keeping a conversation going becomes 10x harder, and I'm inevitably just waiting for an appropriate time to leave. Overall, it just kinda makes you socially awkward and super boring to be around in a social setting. Just from my experience. It seems like most of my response has already been said, but I want to reiterate 3 major observations what I've noticed from my own semi-frequently weed consumption. 1. Demotivation. The impact from weed on motivation levels I find is in 2 parts. The first part is when you initially consume the weed. Most people fall into a habit of eating food and watching something on TV. The second part I found is the next morning. I experience a type of weed hangover the following morning. I feel more groggy and more susceptible to just loading around the following day. 2. Anxiety. Things that aren't currently stressing you out may start to induce anxiety in you. While this isn't always the case, weed has the potential to worsen your mental state if you aren't careful. This impact became more pronounced when I smoked weed solo. Having other people around allowed me to be more present in the moment, whereas I was in my head when I was alone. 3. Food consumption. I found for me that continued weed use led to some unhealthy eating habits. The munchies are real, and for often that not you are craving food that is not considered healthy. If this becomes a more common occurrence, then your overall diet can go south quickly. It can trigger psychosis if you're susceptible to it already. Like anything else in the world, it can be addictive. Putting anything that's not air in your lungs is bad for you. Mind-blowing anxiety and paranoia. Every time. Not for me, thanks. Just to clarify my position, I fully uphold anyone's right to do what they feel helps with their own body and am not against weed. If it helps you, I am happy for you. Wish it was the same for me. Happy New Year. Frequent heavy use can affect your motivation and mood. Even during periods of not being high. It is habit forming. Not technically addictive, but for some it can be habit forming in maladaptive ways. Bad for your lungs if you inhale combusted flower. There's this idea that exists that driving while high on weed is somehow safe. It really isn't. It makes you drowsy, ducks with your reactions time, makes you spacey, aka a bunch of stuff that will make you crash your car and kill someone. This idea among people of like, nah, I'm cool to drive high, is just as dangerous and irresponsible as the people that say I drive better drunk. Both my roommates are heavy smokers, and they just think so slowly. It takes them forever to understand anything. They also forget a lot of stuff. Like they'll step away from the dishes for a moment and then never finish them without prompting. The house smells like a coffin. I eat the occasional edible, but seeing how lethargic they are has convinced me to quit smoking pot entirely. Many people just smoke instead of dealing with their problems. On r/trees I'll see people post "GF just broke up with me. Getting high AF." I treat it like I would alcohol, only on the weekends and occasionally during the weekdays. and just to have fun and not escape my current life situation. Marijuana definitely needs to be studied more. Up until recently, there haven't been very many scientific studies on the effects of marijuana due to legal issues in the US. That said, there is moderate evidence that acute marijuana use can impair learning, memory, and attention, leading to a reasonable argument that it shouldn't be consumed by those under about 25 since the brain is still developing during that time. One of the biggest downsides I've seen as someone that doesn't smoke but who had many friends that do, is it becomes an obsession or crutch. What I mean by this: most of my friends can't get through the day without smoking pot. They constantly need it for stress or irritation. And by doing this it becomes an obsession. For many, including people I've dated, is all they care about doing. Going to their bestie's house and smoking pot. That's literally it. I'm not saying this end up being everyone, but it is many. I hesitate to send you over to r/leaves, but it was a really important subreddit for me to learn from. Be kind to the folks over there. It can overcorrect for anxiety and cause more anxiety. It can dull emotions in general. This can be good or bad. When you need to be empathetic or aware, you are less likely to be. It dulls focus. You can power through it and make that focus reappear if needed. But it's an uphill battle to get to that point. And if you lose focus again, you gotta rebuild it. Lowers short-term memory, which leads to less long-term memories, especially of details. It can interfere with sex drive in men. This has been studied and known. Not all men, but some. It can cause stomach pain in some people. It is mentally addictive and hijacks the dopamine system. This can be reversed by not smoking, but it can make pleasures less pleasurable if you smoke heavily for a long term. This thread is giving me more and more motivation to quit in the new year. What I've noticed about excessive use and what's frequently touched upon here is the demotivation. I become a slobbish baked potato for the most part. I let everything go until it's anxiety-inducing and causes a breakdown. And quitting cold turkey, at least in my experience, can cause sleep paralysis, which is terrifying to say the least. If you smoke it way too often, your shorter-term memory gets ducked. Seriously. There was a period in my life when I smoked for 2 months straight, almost a gram a day. My memory was non-existent then. I work in consulting, so I realized it was ducking with my job. So I had to quit. Weed is good. Just don't overdo it. I'm working towards a field where there's a decent potential to be poached, cold called from prospective employers looking to hire me away from my current employer for a decent pay grade increase and decent benefits. The conversation could go like this: so we have a position for you to start tomorrow 3 miles from your house at $122,000 per year with full medical, including dependents, a pension, a 32-hour work week, alternating between Fridays and Mondays off every other weekend is a 4-day weekend, guaranteed yearly bonus, and a $10,000 cash signing bonus. We just need you to pee in this cup first. Psychological dependence. When you can't sleep without it, eat without it, or relax without it, tends to make one quite passive, mentally and physically. With chronic use, paranoia, anxiety, panic attacks and triggering underlying mental illnesses come to mind as downsides. But these symptoms are rare and vary from individual to individual. Laziness. I know a lot of people say it makes you more motivated, but based on the stoners that I personally know, that definitely is not the case. It can worsen depression and anxiety symptoms long term even when you aren't high. It can also give you a brain fog when you aren't high and makes it harder to process things and in general makes you slower. I started smoking pot in high school. I'd go to school and then go hang out with my friends and get high. Not every day, but some. I had chess club 1 day a week and I was a better chess player if I had not smoked pot the previous day. It was so obvious at the time because at that age the only changing variable was what I did between the end of school and sleep. So it limits my capacity to think critically. Not sure if that's just because I was young, or what. The fact that it's a drug but it's normalized. Everyone on this stupid site worship it. It smells even worse than cigarette smoke, what's more.